Well, new polling among the Palestinian Society has been released this morning. The surveys were conducted by the Palestinian Center for Political Sciences. The Palestinian Authority revealing that the majority of the public supports the continued resistance groups like the Lion's Den. Another revelation from the polling is that if elections were held today and both the heads of the PA and the heads of Hamas were to compete, the Hamas leader, Ismail Haniyeh, would come out on top. Let's bring in I-24 News Middle East correspondent Ariel Osaran live with us in studio. Good morning. A lot to unpack in this survey. 72% of the Palestinian public supporting groups like the Lions Den, supporting the establishment of more armed resistance. An overwhelming 87% claim that the Palestinian Authority has no right to arrest the armed members of these groups and prevent them from carrying out actions against Israel to provide them with protection. Walk us through some of these figures. Walk us through what the Palestinian public is feeling and the continued distrust with the Palestinian Authority.
Yeah, I think that's, Hamda, your point at the end that really hits the nail on the head, describing all these figures that we're about to dive in. The already low level of support, of trust that the Palestinian public has in its official political leadership is continuing to decrease consistently in recent years, and you can really compare this from poll to poll, seeing how the numbers are gradually dropping. But as you touched on some key data here, I think one of the most interesting figures that does pop out of this survey, of this poll conducted by Khalil Shikaki's research center in the West Bank, is that 72% of Palestinians, that's nearly 3 in 4 Palestinians, support the continuation and forming more geographic-based armed groups like the Lion's Den in Nablus. They feel that this is a more grassroots kind of infrastructure that doesn't have all the political infighting that the better established groups have. And if we break that down, 51% of people who were surveyed in this poll see arms struggle against Israel as the most effective means to end the Israeli occupation of the West Bank. As for the two-state solution, 69% of Palestinians believe that a two-state solution is no longer practical on the ground, mainly due to Israeli settlements. And 28% still feel that it is a solution that remains practical in some ways. You also talked about the dropping support for Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. 75% of the public want to see him leave office. I don't know how many leaders in the world right now have such low approval ratings, but in the Palestinian Authority, you don't have open elections, and so the current leadership is there to stay. And as to the question of the elections, what would happen, there's a lot of criticism that this is perhaps the reason, the fact that Ismail Haniyeh, the leader of Hamas, would be projected to come on top and beat current Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas. That is believed to be one of the reasons why he had canceled the elections in the first place. If we stay on elections, I think it was interesting that if Haniyeh and Abbas face off, Haniyeh will win. But if Haniyeh and Marwan Barghouti, who is currently in an Israeli prison, if they square off, it will be Barghouti who were to win by a 2-to-1 ratio. And so there isn't really a substantial political base of support for Palestinian President Abbas, as we can see in this poll.
Well, Mahmoud Abbas' popularity has been waning for years, probably at an all-time low because of just his mismanagement and what people will call a lack of empathy, a lack of support for the Palestinian people in general. Let's talk about if there were any positives that came out of this polling, any positive revelations perhaps around the world from this?
Yeah, so most of the poll kind of illustrates the lack of positive horizon for the Palestinian public, but there was one nice source of hope for Palestinians, where 66% of them say that they have regained much of their trust in their fellow Arab people of their fellow Arab nations due to the different shows of solidarity and support for the Palestinians that they saw during the World Cup in Qatar. Not only do we see many supporters walking around with Palestinian flags, but even the Moroccan national team more than once raised the Palestinian flag in support. And the first World Cup in an Arab country is definitely not disappointing in that area, given that a lot of the trust of Palestinians in in Arabs from other neighbor nations has dropped following the different normalization agreements with Israel. And so for them, the World Cup has been a boost in solidarity.
Well, one positive coming from this polling out of Palestinian society this morning. I-24 News Middle East correspondent Ariel Osran live in studio with us this morning. Thank you.